talking with some people about why Valve is so successful, and what you could learn from that. And I think a lot of people get stuck up on the flat company thing as thinking that's the answer, and I would argue it's actually something else. And while the flat company is a structure of itself that empowers this, it really is that they don't hire for roles, but they hire for people. Now, when you're a small company, you can't do that. You have to hire for a role. Like if you need a technical artist, you need a technical artist, you're screwed, right? But as they grew, they realized it was way more interesting just to put interesting people in the company and find out what happens. I'm a hire like that, right? I mean, I was hired for writing, but I think Gabe wasn't really sure what that would play out to be. So when Eric and I were hired, we didn't actually go through a traditional interview process. We did not sit down and go through an 8-hour long day. And so we just hung out with Gabe for 3 days. And at the end of it, he offered us a job. So which is more intense or less intense, I don't know. But he would tell us when we first started, just walk down the hallways and just, enter any room and you'll make the room better by just your input. And it's like, well, that's crazy. These people just made Half-Life 2 and just shipped that. Like, how am I gonna make them better? But what happens is when you hire like that is that you get people who then over time get empowered. Like early on, you're not, right? Early on, you're just like, oh my God, I'm gonna get fired because I'm not doing anything and all these people are really talented.
Did you know the very first job I ever did at Valve, the very first thing that I ever could look at and go, oh, I did something, was the Day of Defeat source webpage? I complained there wasn't a webpage for it, and I thought there should be, because we really played it a lot back then, before release. And someone was like, well, just go make one then. I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah, in fact, now it's your job to go make one. So I made it. Q, the artist, did all the layout. That's why it looks pretty, but it's still up today with everything that I did on it.
Some people might just be a concept artist, and they're just heads down concept artists, and they just love to draw concept art, and that is all they're going to do. And they love that, and they're happy, and that has a place for that too. But for other people, for some people, including not just myself, but there's other engineers and other people, you have to get a broader spectrum of it, and that's way better. So once I was talking to somebody from a large Eastern European developer, and they're like, how do we get to 10,000 people? This is way too many people. And he's just like, well, we had a box and we had to move it from here to there. So we hired someone to do that. And I'm like, well, how do we do that? We hire somebody to move it from there to there. And you just keep hiring more people to move boxes. You don't just have one person move boxes. Or as Gabe would like to put it, you can make one senior person have to move the boxes, and they're going to figure out some way to automate that process, right? And again, it doesn't have to be everybody. And I'm not saying like, oh, well, I'm so smart or so great because I was across this way. But you get people who have an understanding of a lot of parts of the business that can say, hey, things are changing, or hey, we need to think about this. I remember at one point working on, this is after TF2 had really blown up, and some other things were going on, being like, hey, some people are really uncomfortable with the community making the art. And they think like, oh, we're so good at this, we should be the one driving this. And the reality is you can go look at the early videos we did about TF2 and how deliberate we were about the art and how great Moby's art was. And it was fabulous. He's a great artist and a really good person. But the reality is there's a point we opened it up. And I remember there was a point where it was one of the, like early on in TF2, they would someone would come onto Steam and they would take one of those characters and put it into the game. One of those characters just did not mesh with the art style at all. It was just crazy different. And I just remember thinking at that happening, going, this is an inflection point. Either we reject this because we think we're so smart about character recognition and all that, or it just doesn't really matter once people are comfortable with the game. And it ends up, it didn't really matter. And we were able to just kind of ingest every style into that game because it just still kind of works. Now, it works because the people playing it kind of changed, right? They kind of adapted and didn't be the hardcore, we're making a competitive shooter, but into morphing to this kind of having a fun kind of game. And so that has to happen as well, but you have to be aware of that. And so if you're a small company, I got no advice for you. But if you're a bigger company, think about hiring the people and not worrying about the exact role. Because if you do hire smart people or good people, they're going to figure it out. They're going to sweat it. They're going to be like me, up at night not being able to sleep because I can't figure out like where I fit into this. And I'm working with a bunch of smart people. What can I do? What can I offer? And they're going to figure it out. Right? Again, it feels like I'm complimenting myself in some backhanded way. But the reality is I wasn't smart enough to hire me. I wouldn't have hired me if I was Gabe. But like that is a really important thing to try to do. And so as you're growing your company, make some wildcard hires. See how it goes, right? I mean, it was definitely, Gabe hired us by fiat And I think some people disagreed with it. Some people came up later to me. Doug Lombardi one time came up to me later after we'd become friends. He goes, I was against hiring you. Really good hire. So like people can change on that, but just try it. Mix it up, because sometimes it isn't that person that just fits into that slot, but it's the person who kind of sits over across a lot of things. And then the person will go off and start their own company and be like, oh God, I forgot how hard this part is. But there you go. So why, this is in reference to, if you watch this video, I talk about the flat structure and how powerful it can be when done right. The reason people don't do this is because you have to do it from the first time you hire. And you have to be willing to fire a lot of people, because a lot of people just won't work in this. I had one guy, at one point, there's a sound person who's super senior, super talented, and we're like, hey, we really need this stuff. He's like, I'm not doing it. You're not my boss. No one can tell me what to do. I'm just going to go make fart noises for 6 months. And then after 6 months, he got fired. It wasn't quite that bad, but yeah, he was. But like, you just have to hire for it, and senior people aren't necessarily all the same. So here at Straight Bombay, it's a mistake I made, was we hired senior people and we kind of had this, like, we don't have time. I'm a really big proponent of, you do not hire junior people unless you have people there to train them and teach them. Otherwise, you're just throwing them to the wolves and they're going to get a bunch of bad practices and not understand what they're doing. Their formative years early on, you want to have senior people there training them. So you have to hire for that. We try to hire for that at Straight Bombay. We try to hire senior people, but ends up there is a really large gap between someone who's worked for 10 years at a place and somebody who's owned things, executed on things, and cares for 10 years. Now, I don't want to bash anybody here, because it's my fault. I hired wrong people for what we needed or what the fit is. I often get this, like, oh my God, we're just gonna hire somebody. Oh my God, my God, my God, my God. Everybody will, I can. So they always tell a phrase, women hear this a lot, right? You can't fix him, because dating, you think you can fix this guy who's a jerk. You can't fix employees. It's a horrible thing to say. You can't get somebody. You can't look at somebody who has a bunch of problems and go, oh well, but when they're here, we'll fix that. It just doesn't work, right? Okay, but back to the point. You have to hire for it, and you have to hire that kind of person. So we hire senior people at Straight Bombay, and not all of them fit into our culture of being able to be self-reliant and kind of own things and really pick the right things to work on. And that was a failure on my part, 100%. The people we have now, man, they all do this, because if you do this right, you have people who just jump in and say, there's a problem, I'm going to learn how to fix it. If I don't know how to fix it, I'm going to look for the right person to help me fix it, or I'm going to take it. Like, often bugs are, somebody will be like, I don't know how to fix this bug, but I know how to research so that the person who is going to fix this bug will have the most information about it and they can fix it better. All right. And that's about distilling groups down and hiring right and getting lucky. Like an established company, it's really hard to change to say you're going to do this, that you're going to kind of make this pivot and be more flat and be more spread out. There's management that goes with that goes away. Management isn't, like, we all like to rail against management, but they actually do some things. And there's also then, how do you decide bonuses? How do you decide pay? How do you decide pay increases? Like, all of that has to be considered in this, because that has to come from it. That's why the stack ranking of your peers comes up, because you need somebody who actually has information to be able to make these choices, right? So it's just not as easy as saying, like, hey, we're all gonna be a flat company. It's really, really hard. And out of all the places that do it, only Valve is the one that I know that was successful at doing it. And so that's a testament to some of the early employees there that allowed that to happen, really, right? Because they didn't do the, hey, I've been here longer than you have, I deserve something or whatever. But yeah, for the most part, it just doesn't really work. And I don't think it really worked for us. And we really weren't flat. And then at one point we had somebody who came in and kind of weaponized the idea that I wasn't allowed to tell people what to do. And I'm like, no. I'm the lead designer or creative on this. I'm going to change how this is being done. And this is like a whole weird thing, right? And so it's hard. I think now that I think about it, is I ever say those words out loud, and instead just empower people and spread the workload and make sure that they have autonomy and ability to fail, but yet learn from that and just keep growing that way. I don't know, but it is not an easy thing to emulate. How do you get a job at Valve? Don't make that your goal. This is a younger developer, I think still in high school, looking to be like, hey, their dream job is working at Valve. That is doing a classic thing that I talk a lot about on this channel, and that's confusing tools and goals. Working at Valve is a tool to make good games, but your goal should be to make good games, right? Or, I assume that's your goal. I'm assuming it's just not to get fancy t-shirts. But so to do that, then you're gonna go through high school. Now you can make an indie game on your own there, or maybe you're gonna go to college, a design college. You're gonna have some point where you're like, I'm ready to enter the professional game space. I have built some tools, repertoire, understanding, knowledge. You're gonna go, and you're not gonna start at Valve. That's a rarity. There's a few people, but that's a rarity. What you're gonna do is you're gonna go start with an indie group. You're gonna go start with a big giant AAA dev that just needs to fill seats. I remember being on a panel with somebody from Ubisoft that said they take only the top of the top artists. I'm like, what, the top 30,000? Because you guys got a lot of artists. Not to say that Ubisoft artists are bad. I'm just saying, like, they got a lot of artists, right? And so if you're a junior artist, they hire junior people. Valve doesn't hire junior people or really do traditional internships, mostly. So you got to figure that out. So you're gonna go there and you're gonna learn something. You're gonna be like, hey, I don't like working at a AAA dev. I don't like the facelessness of it. Or you may be like, I don't like the pressure of working in an indie team where I feel like, oh my God, we're gonna go under if I don't do everything right. There's a person, a couple of us at Valve admire at Valve, who just walks in every day, does their job, walks out and never complains, never talks about anything, never is controversial, never really gets into it in meetings. Is like, you decide, I do it. I can't be that person. And either can Eric and the other people involved in the conversation, so I think we're kind of jealous of that. But equally, like, maybe that's you, and that's cool, and then you could work at a big place like that and you'll be happy. Or maybe it's going to be that you're going to need to have that autonomy and be able to have agency in what you do, and you want to work on a smaller thing. But right, there's trade-offs for everything is what I'm trying to say. And as you look at Valve today, are you looking at Valve today, or are you looking at Valve from yesterday, right? The Valve I joined was 75 people trying to figure out episodic content and linear form content. The Valve I left was very different, right? I joined pre-Steam. They didn't even, I guess Steam was just starting, which is good. It's good when you get stock options to be on the just starting part. Right? Like, it changed. It's different, right? So sometimes people ask, like, why didn't I go back to a game team after I had done kind of like the PR stint thing or the biz dev stuff around VR, and then I was just doing general Steam stuff. Because I was a different person then at Valve, right? Where you don't know most of the people who work at Valve, and they're mainly more smarter than me, see? And they're just kind of not faceless, but this is the kind of the way they work, and this is the way that they organize and excel. And so you don't hear a lot about those people. And I would be coming back to the team where some people knew me as Chet, the Chet who got some Redditors sent flowers and did these talks and all this stuff, right? And so me coming back into the team is going to be disruptive in a way. Not to say that I'm some great person, but just the dynamic would be different. And I have an understanding of that. And I talk to some people there. Now, I don't want to be disruptive. I really like everybody there, and I really like what they're doing, and there's really smart people there, right? I mean, Robin Walker's heads down, just pounding out a bunch of content, right? Like, he's not going off and doing press tours anymore because he learned early on how bad that is. But so, like, right, like there'd be clashing going on and stuff. And so it didn't make sense for me to come back there, even though it was a company that I really appreciate and I really like. We had both changed, and it didn't make sense anymore. And so you might change. You might decide you really just want to be an indie darling artist because you love making really weird, crazy frogs, and that's all you want to paint for the rest of your life. I don't know, right? Like, seriously, don't underestimate how weird you get internally over what motivates you or what excites you, because it's different for everybody. And you will learn the thing, or maybe you know now. But the thing should never be go work at Valve or go work at Blizzard or go work at anywhere. I mean, look at Blizzard. Like, if you would have been like, oh my God, I love the first Warcry, right? It was Warcry, not War. You know what I'm saying. One of the early games. Oh my God. But right, like, and then all of a sudden, like, now it's the Blizzard that's known for a lot of other things. Well, Diablo 4 is fine, but like, it changes, and it always changes. And so don't make don't make the tool working at some place the goal. Make the goal always be, you know, what do you really want? Do you want to be a great artist, designer, engineer, whatever that is? Make that the goal. Work for that. And then at some side point, you might be like, hey, I'm really successful and Valve's asking me to come work there. I'm going to go work there. Like, and it's the place I want to work because they're back to making a ton of games, right? I mean, again, like when I started Valve, we shipped episode 1, episode 2, TF2, Portal, Left 4 Dead 1, Left 4 Dead 2, and Portal 2, and all the DLC and everything in that. That's all stuff I shipped within the first like 6-7 years. That's a lot of stuff. I worked there for 12 years. We shipped a lot less stuff after that, right? So it's a different company even for me. So again, don't make that the goal. Make the goal be the best of whatever you want to be, and then you'll find opportunity from that.
Con from the Discord has a question about Valve and their hiring practices. So let's dig into that. His question is, I think you've said before you never had to write a resume and your interview at Valve was fairly informal. What's your interview process like at your company? And did you also take part in the giving interviews at Valve? All right, so here I can talk about this. So yeah, our interview process was not the normal interview process. Our interview process was a couple of days of just kind of hanging out. And it was, Gabe had identified that they wanted to be a little bit more ambitious about some storytelling stuff and kind of also go into linear media a little bit. The linear media output of that is if you've seen the shorts or the comics. That's kind of stuff. And so with that, he was looking for additional people, and he was willing to kind of make a wild card hire by fiat. So yeah, we were a weird hire. We just hung out, we played, we story tested, and we tried things together, and we tried to tell stories, and we just made jokes together, and like we hung out all the time. And then I think I've said before is then I was playing unreleased Half-Life 2 and I got stuck while Gabe was watching me, and that was pretty embarrassing. I thought we wouldn't get hired. But yeah, no, we got hired. And the weird thing then at Valve is spent the next 6 months pretty sure we were gonna get fired. And Eric famously got really sick, and they took care of him, and we just realized we're going to be working here forever if they take care of our friend like that. I guess Eric just is self-centered. But either way, that's what happened. And, for Valve, the hiring process is they put the guard up to bring you in normally really high. And actually, hanging out with Gabe for 3 days is a pretty hard hiring process. I was gonna say I love the man, but that was intense. That was an intense 3 days, right? But they put this guard up and they make it hard to get hired because once they let you in, like they let us over the gate, we're free to just go crazy for a while, right? And so you can't hire poorly because that'll destroy this system. And the whole time I was there, 12 years, I can only remember really 1 or 2 people that just clearly didn't fit once they got hired, and they were quickly kind of said goodbye to. And it was just really obvious, but it's because that wall's so high. And so with that, the hiring process, and I know other companies do this as well, similar, is you talk about who's going to get hired, and you have a group of people who are going to go do it. And what it is like, let's say 10 a.m. person shows up, they get interviewed with the first 2 people. You already know what those 2 people are going to talk about. Maybe they're going to talk about, have them do some coding on the board, or maybe they're going to do a design test or something. Like test meaning just like an exercise with people back and forth. It's a lot about communication. And so you do that, and then those 2 people meet with the next 2 people. And the next 2 people already have something on the schedule that they're going to do, but they're going to be like, hey, what should we push on? What's the thing we don't know about? And then those 4 people go to the next one, and they like just keep leapfrogging, right? And you keep growing. And I was often the guy who took people to lunch. I'm telling you, I love Valve is beyond me. I had the cushiest job. But yeah, I took people to lunch. And it was a lot about social stuff and just other odder things, right? Less the practical, like coding or something or animating. But with that, occasionally, you would find these things of like the first set of groups are like, oh, this person's awesome. And then you get to my lunch, and I'm like, I just remember this one. I was like, wait, hang on. He was great at lunch, super like idea generative, talking all this stuff. But has he done anything? Has he done any of the things he said? He talks like he has, but all of a sudden I realize and finds out he hadn't, right? And then all of a sudden, once you start tearing apart like actual, because everyone can be an idea person, right? But actual implementation is always way harder. But yeah, so I would introduce people to Valve to get hired like that. That would be, they get into the interview process, and I would think they're a great hire, and they wouldn't get hired, and I would just have to agree with the process because the process works, right? So you get that because you have those people in there, they have a sense of ownership, and they could screw the ship up, right? And so again, you make it hard to hire, and that works. Because anybody could veto. Anybody could be like, no. And if you really, you could also do the other thing where you'd be like, I'm going to champion this person and I'm going to go talk with them. So for our company, we had a similar way of doing the interviews. And we didn't make errors of hiring because also we had a really diverse company working on the game. And that just really kind of happened naturally. And just wanted to make sure that everybody's always comfortable. And I'll tell you what, there is never a 10x game engineer that is worth it. There just never is. There never is. That person A doesn't really exist because you don't work in a silo. You're always working with a group of people, and you need it. Occasionally, you need somebody who's really smart, who can come and do something really hard. Yes. But day in and day out, you need people who can work collaboratively, and that's what we had. We actually had some really smart people. Some people left really high-paying jobs to come work on the Anacrusis. But so the problem we had is me. And that was, I get antsy and I'm like, oh my God, we should just hire this person. Oh, come on, we can ignore that. That's fine. And more level heads would have to be like, hey, here's why we shouldn't hire that person. But I go, yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good point. Oh, so that said, hiring is this weirdly weird black art because the success isn't hiring the person. The success is hiring the right person for your company. And so then the success really is the output of that hiring. The most successful way that I have seen people start companies is a group of people working in a place together leave and form a core where they know each other really well, and then tack on to that where they have that same, anybody's allowed to kind of keep that core safe. And I've seen that be successful. But seeing other companies do really nice, thoughtful, hey, we do through the interview process, and now we're going to bring you back, and you're going to talk with the people you're directly going to be working with, or directly with your supervisor, and have an extended session, so you can just see how you work with and how that, like, all this is time consuming and costly, but it's also hiring the wrong person is even worse.
Kind of, yes. So this is talking about the Valve interview process. And scoring of Left 4 Dead is a classic question there, partially because it doesn't have just one answer to it. There's a lot of good answers and a lot of bad answers, and you would let someone start answering it, and you could push them into different places and get feedback and get them to understand what they're going to, like how they're going to answer it and how they think about it. And it's really about showing the work, about talking it through and seeing how they'll do it. There's also one about like a sinking ship and story for Half-Life, and like there's some others if you go search online. I won't go through them all because I don't know it's all public. But they're all ways of like giving somebody who you can just say the one word kind of answer, and then you kind of twist that out and you make that not the right answer, and then they have got to kind of figure it out and talk out loud of their process and how they think about it and how they come to the solution, because that's how you want to see it. It's like are they logically approaching this problem and working on it. And so the Valve interview process actually is, you start, let's say at 10 a.m. and you do a 50-minute interview, and you get interviewed by 2 people, sometimes 3, but normally 2. And then that 10-minute interview, or that 10-minute window, those 2 people then go talk to the people who are doing the 11 a.m. interview. And they then say, hey, this person was really good at this, or we have this question, or we're worried about this, or hey, it was great. Just go do your regular interview. So sometimes you just go push to the next person, just do whatever they already planned to do. And because you'll say it ahead of time, like you'll plan what you're going to all do. And sometimes you'll be like, hey, we didn't get good feedback on this. We should just push this, and we should talk about this. And then noon comes around and they do lunch. That's me. I was a good lunch guy. And that's more the social, and just kind of trying to figure out some of like, I think what they're saying is really true. Like, is what we had one person get pretty far when I finally just had to ask, like, but have you actually done any of this, or are you just talking about doing this? And of course, they were just talking about doing this. And this is some of this stuff on the story side. We'll run into people that aren't, their backgrounds aren't as easy to evaluate of what they actually did or not did. But the whole process is to try to be like, hey, let's try to ferret out and understand this person and give them the benefit of the doubt. And then each person following will learn from the others and have a good understanding of like what they should be diving into, what they should be picking apart, what they should be celebrating. And again, I've done the interview side a bunch, but I did not go through the interview process. Instead, I hung out with Gabe for 3 days. You decide which one's easier. Sometimes it's just someone gets really, really nervous, right? And then that's like, sorry, man. But like, we're going to evaluate you on how you do today, not the things we've heard about you, because we want to see how you really work with people. And sometimes for that lunch that I would do, I would just literally be like, hey, just chill this person out, calm them down. Like, Chet's not very bright. Let's just show them we hire people that aren't that smart. And I'd be like, hey, you like chicken? And then we would go eat. And then they would get more comfortable. And so that you would get the best person out of them. But it's also over the course of like that whole day of interview, your nerves kind of get out of you and you just become you. And also like anything that you were trying to present that isn't you comes out and you just become you after a while as well, because it's a longer process. It's interesting. You know, I think it really does work, and the job there isn't like, I've worked at places that are trying to hire and staff up and grow as fast as they can, and the job there is to hire as many people as they can. Where at Valve, the job is to not hire anybody, and that everybody they do hire has kind of earned that place in how people think, and they're not hiring for the position, they're not hiring for the job, they're hiring you to come work at Valve so that then you can go do like I did and just do a whole bunch of weird stuff like eat chicken at lunch to help interviews. It's a job, man. It's a job.